Welcome to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast, the go-to place for busy band directors who want practical to build programs while maintaining balance in their lives. This podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Educator Academy, where we help directors like you find efficiency, sustainability, and impact in your teaching and leadership. Now, let's dive in and set the tempo for success.
Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. We know you don't have time to watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we bring you 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to amplify your impact, not your workload. So stay tuned today because we're going to talk about if you felt like you love teaching band, but your schedule starts to take a toll on your well-being. And we've talked about this before. What can you do about it? Today, you're going to walk away with some simple, realistic strategies that you can start tomorrow and help protect your time and your energy and your health without lowering your standards or sacrificing your program, because nobody wants to have a crappy program just so they feel better, because then you don't feel better. So I am really excited today to introduce you to Dr. Jen Rafferty. She's a former music teacher who taught choir and general music before stepping into a new role supporting educators through her business, Empowered Educator. She's also the author of a book, A Place in the Staff, Finding Your Way as a Music Teacher, where she shares both practical strategies and personal insight from her own journey in the classroom. Jen's gone through a powerful healing journey after experiencing the very real impact that teaching can have on our health. And she now helps educators find a more sustainable way to do this work that they love. So I could tell you about her, but Jen's much better at telling her own story than I am. So I just want to jump right in today because I think a lot of folks are really going to resonate with what you've gone through and overcome. And so that's what's so exciting is you've got some real strategies that you are living proof of that work, and you've worked with other teachers and helped them. So welcome aboard. Can you share your story with us?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I thought I would be a teacher in the music classroom my entire career. I knew that I wanted to be a music teacher since I was a little girl, and it was truly the way I thought I was going to change the world. I really did. I remember getting into my first classroom. I was so excited about all the changes I would make. And after years and years and years of this job, I became one of those teachers where on the outside, it looked like I was doing it all. I had it all together. I was conducting choirs, honors choirs across New York State. I was presenting nationally at music education conferences about adolescent brain development and how to create responsive curriculum in the 7th grade general music classroom. I was living my best nerd life in so many ways and really changing the narrative, particularly about middle school music. And right in December 2019, as I shared with you before we recorded, I published my first book, A Place in the Staff. And 2 weeks later, my husband and I decided we were going to get a divorce. And I moved out of my house with my 2 kids the same weekend the world shut down in March of 2020. And while that time was obviously really hard for everybody, there was maybe some special sauce happening in the Rafferty household. But the most challenging part for me in all of that was rediscovering and reinventing myself. My identity was so connected with my work and my job and who I was in the classroom. And then, of course, as a wife and living in that home. And while I was still a mom, I knew I was so much more than that. And that time period really allowed me to step back and ask myself some confronting questions. First being, who am I if I'm not standing in front of my kids making music? And who did I want to be? And how do I make a bridge to get there? And what I realized during this time, and, I took some extra time off. I stayed home that semester to homeschool my kids. I started my PhD in educational psychology. And what I learned was that particularly as teachers, but I think especially as music teachers, we are conflating so much who we are with what we do. And this is a really precarious way to move about our spaces in the classroom, because when things don't go the way we want them to, it becomes very personal and becomes a reflection of who we are as people and our worth. And what I've discovered is, if we want our students to know their self-worth, we need to know ours. And although music classrooms tend to be the place of connection, vulnerability, even social emotional skills, the teachers in these spaces need to be well and not living a life of burnout, overwhelm, exhaustion, reaching to the limits of what we can do for the sake of martyrdom, because it's not working and is actually doing an injustice and a disservice to our students.
Amen. Yeah, I found too that I get physically so unhealthy to have to miss lots of school. And then no matter what a good teacher you are, when you're not in the building, you can't have any impact. And then there's more subs. And so, yeah, that foundation, it's like music skills, right? If you get the foundation really strong, those fundamental, the long tones and the, fingerings or the technique, then you can build on that. And so we are the foundation for our classrooms. And so getting our own self, right?
100%.
So talk to us about that journey, what it felt like for you personally, and then what that looked like when you had to make some big decisions.
Sure. Well, I think to your point, we learn the fundamentals of music. We learn all the techniques, but we don't learn the fundamentals and techniques of wellness.
Right.
We wake up one day as adults in charge of children, and you're just supposed to know how to do this. And I think the first thing that I had to learn was a lot of self-forgiveness. I think in a lot of ways of, I didn't know how to do this any better. Towards the end of my time teaching, I remember I was constantly sick, could never get rid of this sinus headache I was feeling. My back was always out. And over the last few years, towards the end, I had developed these weird skin rashes all over that 7 doctors could not tell me what was happening. Ultimately, it was all the cortisol that I was experiencing, and it was 100% stress. And I've now, I talk with thousands of teachers across the world now. And it's interesting. One of the themes that keep coming up is I go to the doctor and they say, hey, you need to live a stress-free life, reduce your stress. And they're like, I know. Tell me how to do that, doc. And what's true is there are better techniques to the being, and instead of the doing. We don't do wellness, we be wellness. It's an action. It's how we are, how we live. And so to answer your question, how did I move through that? Well, I had to, again, ask myself some really confronting questions and make some difficult decisions. I had to get really honest about what actually was serving me, what my values were, and am I actually living my values? If I say that I value my health, but I'm working myself beyond my limits, there's no alignment between what I say I value and what I actually do. And so I had to truly, and with a lot of grace and patience and love, shift the way I behaved and the choices that I made in order to live in alignment with what I said I actually valued.
Yeah, to become that person. Yeah.
That's it.
But you got to visualize it first, right? You got to figure out what it is, because that's half the battle, is getting that clarity of, okay, what do I believe enough to make sure my behaviors align with that.
Yes.
And then the commitment. Yeah. I've gone through that, and it's very powerful. But I remember my doctor, it was so frustrating when I was going through all of this as well. The phrase he would use is, it's just stress. And he'd always use the word just, which just minimized it too, as if it's just, that was so frustrating to me.
Yeah, it probably caused more cortisol. I mean, it's not just stress. And I think that's part of it too, until it becomes visible. But what I share too, and what I've experienced myself, your body has one way of communicating with you, and that's physical symptoms. So when you have that headache that you've been ignoring for 3 weeks, or your stomach's a mess, or you're noticing your heart rate is getting faster, or your jaw is super clenched, that is your body saying, hey, we're not okay. We need some attention. But what do we normally do? We ignore it and we don't do anything. And we self-soothe and we self-medicate, and we end up making it worse because we're not addressing the problem, because addressing the problem requires different actions. And that can feel scary sometimes.
It is. But you have to sometimes pick your hard, don't you? It's also hard living the other way. That's what I had found, is it was hard being sick all the time.
Yes. Yes.
And it's hard to get healthy, but now it's a whole lot easier to live. Now that I've learned and really fundamentally changed what I do, from what I eat to how I sleep to what I will let in my personal space, and all of those things.
And it's not easy to just change. In the work that we do, we say all the time, change happens at the speed of safety. So until you start to make these new decisions, feel safe in your nervous system, feel safe inside your body, you're always going to be doing the things that you've always done, because even though they're not serving you, it feels normal. That's your homeostasis for your nervous system. And, your brain doesn't care if you're happy. Your brain doesn't care if you're learning. Your brain cares that you're safe. Your brain cares that you're alive. So even if you decide, okay, I'm going to eat healthier consciously, I know that this is going to make me feel better. But to your brain, you've always done this other thing and it's kept you alive. It has no evidence of you eating salads for a week and surviving to tell the tale. So it's going to be very hard for you to make those changes all the time. So how do you support yourself making healthier decisions towards your well-being? You create safety in your nervous system, which is one of the exercises I'm going to share in this podcast that you can start right away. You can start now.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I'll actually share two.
Okay.
The first one, life-changing. I'm going to invite you to explore this like a science experiment. What if, just for one day, 2 days, if you're feeling brave, you moved and spoke and went through your day 10% slower?
Oh.
What would happen? And I will tell you, for me, that was the very first step in my journey. And the educators who I've worked with through Empowered Educator, who have done just this, have made incredible changes, because when you slow down, you start to notice things. We are so jazzed up on our autopilot that we go through our days mostly subconsciously. We are not even paying attention. And when you start in the slow, you begin to notice, oh, that's so interesting. I am reacting in this physical way to this conversation. That's so interesting. A text message just came through and I got a knot in my stomach. That's so interesting. The student came in and said something and now I'm upset. What's going on here? So 10% slower. I'm going to just put that there before I do my next one. How does that one feel, Lesley?
Just as you said, that slowing down. What do we do when there's technique issues with our students or our own practicing? Slow things down so you can notice what's feeling like and all of that. We are so good at helping other people do this, but damn, it's hard to do for yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely is, especially as teachers. It's so easy to just, deflect and say, well, how does this work here? This is truly about you. So, and we're just going to do it for a day, maybe two, because if you say, okay, I'm going to commit to this for a week, your nervous system is going to freak out and you're going to self-sabotage. You're not going to do it. So just a day. And if a day is too long, do it for half a day and just notice what happens. The second thing that you can do that will be a game changer is something that, again, has been life-changing for me and everybody that I've worked with. It is taking 4 breathing breaks throughout the day. And what I mean by a breathing break is when you stop what you're doing, you put your hand to your heart, you close your eyes if you can, and do 4 rounds of a box breath. And a box breath is in for 4, pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4, and then you're going to repeat it. And I'm sure you're familiar with that. That's a classic breathing technique. But what these 4 breathing breaks throughout the day will do for you is a couple things. One, it's going to interrupt your autopilot because you can't change something you don't notice. So unless we're interrupting our day, you will never change. Just won't. The second thing that it's going to do, it's going to bring awareness to your thoughts. We are constantly running our mind. Our mind is wandering about 50% of the day. And the thoughts that we think, which is tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, is mostly about fear, ego, and past experiences. And so when you stop and you just have a breathing break, you start to notice, oh, that's so interesting. I was thinking about that meeting that I have tomorrow, and that's why my stomach is bothering me, right? The third thing that it does is that it teaches your nervous system what calm feels like. You're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to feel safe because we are so jazzed up, like I said, from the minute we get up in the morning, that your nervous system doesn't feel safe feeling calm. That's why it's Saturday and you're so excited you have a day off. And after you have your morning coffee, it's like 10 o'clock. All of a sudden you start thinking about work again, because again, your brain doesn't have any evidence of you chilling, having a great day and surviving. So what you're doing with those 4 breathing breaks is you're practicing calm. And just like every musician knows, practice is what's going to get the embodiment of what it is we're trying to do with this technique. And so if you're like, Jen, I'm a busy band director, I don't have 4 times a day to breathe. First of all, I'm going to push back on that for a little bit. You don't have time to breathe, really. You breathe 23,000 times every single day. Let's make a handful of them intentional. And here's some ways you can do it: in the car, in your parking lot before you get to school, during your lunch or bathroom break, in the car before you leave, and then again one time before you go to work, before you go to sleep. And try it for a week. See what happens.
I'll take it a step further. If you don't have time to do it, incorporate it in your classes and do it with your students. I do the first 4 minutes of every class every day, and let me tell you, they look like little rag dolls sitting in their chairs, like passed out.
It's like magic. I used to do this with my kids all the time.
Yes.
And honestly, just the safety of it gets their prefrontal cortex back online, and they perform better because now they're not in survival mode. They're actually in a place where they can perform.
That's what I talk about with them. Is every day we start with our bodies. We have brain and body tuning is what I call it with them.
Yes.
But think about how our bodies and our instruments are so similar, right? They attuned, but we can attune to one another in the room physically when we bring that energy down. I play 528 hertz over the PA at the same time, just so we kind of all, and it's just amazing. And so I love everything about what you're saying because it works. And when you do it with your students, it gives you and your kids a reset because you're all running every hour, one thing to the next in between the crazy halls and the bathroom breaks and all the nuts stuff that goes on. It's just, it's a really welcome step. I love what you're talking about. And I've got a couple more questions for you, but I want to take just a moment to shout out our podcast sponsor, the Empowered Music Educator Academy. If you're listening to this while thinking about everything still on your to-do list, I see you. One of the reasons I started building tools alongside this podcast was because even the best strategies don't help you if you're too exhausted to implement them. That's exactly why I created Band Director Buddy GPT. It's a productivity and wellness tool designed to think like a successful band director and support the real work behind the scenes, the planning, emails, scheduling, and problem solving, and more, so you can amplify your impact without increasing your workload. If you're a busy band, choir, or orchestra teacher who wants a sustainable way to do this job, you can learn more at banddirectorbuddy.com. All right. You talked about a lot of different things today, but I want anybody listening today, I want you to just go back and talk to us about what should some red flags be? And then maybe some yellow flags that might prevent the red flags in our bodies if we're feeling things, if the stress, if we're getting to the point where we're going to be broken if we don't do something.
Sure. There's, of course, the physical symptoms that we all know about, the headache that doesn't go away, you're overeating, you're undereating, you're not sleeping, you're sleeping too much. All of those things are signals. Like I said earlier, your body has only one way of communicating to you. It's just, we're terrible at listening, or we ignore it completely. And so listening to those signals as truth, as an important red flag, it is a red flag. Like, hey, something's wrong and I need attention. You deserve that. And you deserve to treat yourself like someone you love. What happens so often is that the way we treat ourselves are ways that we would never treat a good friend, a family member who is going through it, a student. And I'm going to encourage you and invite you to treat yourself like someone you love. And in those moments where your body is literally screaming at you to pay attention. Some of the other things, of course, include just brain fog, your inability to make decisions, things that are used to be easy to do all of a sudden seem a little bit more challenging. You find it difficult to articulate yourself. And those things we can think about, oh, I'm so tired. Especially as music teachers, we wear exhaustion as a badge of honor and busyness as a badge of honor. And that's really dangerous. Another one of these narratives that I think is really dangerous for our well-being is the superhero narrative where we're superheroes. No, we're not. Superheroes are these immortal and indestructible beings. And when we compare ourselves to superheroes, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And it forces us to feel like we can do all of the things. And you are human. You are beautifully mortal and you deserve to treat yourself as such. I'll say one last thing to that. Sometimes burnout comes in a way that is really subtle. It's like having the air conditioner on and it just kind of fades in the background and you don't even know it's there until it's off. And you're like, wow, I didn't even realize it was so loud in this room. I had no idea. So burnout can happen that way too, incrementally, without us even really knowing. I don't like this analogy, but I think it's powerful. It's like the frog in the boiling pot of water, right? I mean, you're in there, and it's by the time you realize it's boiling, you're in it. It's too late.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of good stuff, and super real. I hope people are listening out there. And if you recognize any of these signs, Jen's got a book out. Tell us a little bit about where people who are saying, hey, that's me, I need some help with that. How can they find out more?
Sure. So the new book that's coming out, which is so exciting, is called The Empowered Educator. And if by the time if you're listening to this before August 4th of 2026, it is available on pre-sale, and afterwards you'll be able to get it on sale. And that is truly a step-by-step way for you to not just overcome burnout, but reclaim your agency. So often as teachers, we decide it is what it is. And we say that so often, it is what it is, and it is what it is. And we are counting down the days till Friday and the weeks till summer vacation and the years until retirement. And I want you to want more for yourself than counting down the years of your life. Because what's also true is that retirement is not guaranteed. And we deserve to be living for ourselves now. And most importantly, our students need to see us doing that. Particularly as music teachers, we are often such a big connection for these kids. And if they're looking at us as people who consistently put other people's comfort before our own, consistently override any boundaries, consistently live in overwhelm and stress and frustration and complaining, that's a model for them of how they think life is when they grow up. And you deserve more, and they do. And it is never too late. And I will also say about this book, it is a beautiful prescriptive almost of the steps that I took myself to go from burnout to wellness where I am now. And believe me, this isn't just like a one and done. I don't wake up in the morning and we're good now. It is a process and a practice.
Yes.
Anything that I teach, I practice myself. And I've also had the honor and privilege of seeing thousands of educators transform their lives for themselves, their families, and their students using the information that's in this book.
Awesome. Well, it's important work you're doing. I really appreciate you taking the time to share about this. We'll put a link to Jen's website in our show notes, so anybody wants to reach out and get a hold of her, you can do that. So thank you very much to Dr. Jen Rafferty. Rafferty, Dr. Jen Rafferty, excuse me for that, for being here today and sharing so many really helpful, usable tips that can make a huge, huge difference starting today. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Band Director Bootcamp. I want to thank all of you who keep showing up every day to teach music and change the world through the magic of music education. Remember, it's not just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. Thanks for listening. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to work harder to be effective. You just need better support. Band Director Buddy GPT was created for music educators who care deeply about their programs but are tired of carrying everything alone. It's there to help you think through challenges, streamline the busy work, and protect your time and energy without lowering your standards. If that sounds like what you've been craving, head to banddirectorbuddy.com to explore how it works and decide if it's a good fit for you. Thanks for listening to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast and for the work you do every single day.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Band Director Bootcamp podcast. Remember, success in music education isn't just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. The Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you do just that. So be sure to check out our resources at empowerededucator.com. Thanks for listening and keep making music happen.